Here's one of my rarest plants. I just bought this off Etsy. This is like kind of a joke.
Is it like a geophyte?
It is Aeriospermum.
Okay.
So it's a bulb. It's a rare South African bulb. I think it's the Titanopsis or something. It's really, really neat. One tiny, very silvery leaf, like so silvery it looks like it's made out of metal.
The emperor has no clothes.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, I didn't buy it like this. I bought the bulb and I put it in here and I send this to people and I say, look at my rarest plant. Like, people that don't know much about plants, I'm like, what do you think? And they're just kind of like, what am I supposed to say here? My name is Tomasz Roszkowski. Welcome to what I learned is called the Florida room from my old Italian landlady when I moved in here, and we're in Ridgewood, Queens. And
a Florida room in Ridgewood, Queens.
It's a very rare thing to have in this city, and I learned that this was just grandfathered in when she moved in 1972. This had already been here. I think it would be nearly impossible, or the amount of paperwork and money to build something like this nowadays. How sturdy it is, I don't really know. And sometimes she comes in here and yells at me and says, you got too many plants, Tommaso. They're gonna fall through the floor and land on me down there. And I'm not 100% sure if she's joking. But so far, nothing has fallen through.
So you moved here, and then did you just say, oh, I have to have plants? Like, what was the story?
So I had never owned a houseplant in my life until we moved in here. This room, I had the photo for you later so you can show it. We moved in, this was just a big empty room. My dad, who my entire life had been like a green thumb plant nerd, and I thought, like, what is this guy doing? Like, wasting his time misting these plants. And, you know, this is like in the 90s, like 100 fluorescent lights around some bird of paradise or something, and one flower popped out, and it was the greatest day of his life. So he said, oh, you have a Florida room. Why don't we go to Home Depot down the street, and I'll buy you a plant. And for a while, there was just one banana plant in here at the end. And then I thought, you know what? Another plant would look nice. As this hobby goes, it snowballs. You meet people, you go on Instagram, all of a sudden you go to Home Depot and notice the garden section that was invisible to you previously, and you're coming home, and then you get into plants you're only interested in things that are impossible to take care of. And the last place they want to live is in this room. And here we are at this point in this hobby, and I'd love to sort of talk about that journey as well as some of these plants.
Sure, I'd love that. And this is cute. Like, what is the size of this so people could get a sense? Because it's tight, but you have a lot in it.
It's tight. It's the width of the house. I think it's 18 feet and about 5 feet deep.
I mean, so many people would love a little greenhouse off the side of their house, and this is kind of it.
So I would want to just let everyone know that thinks that everyone is, you know, I would love to have something like this. If I had this, it would be such a gift. It is a gift. It is a curse. All right, the room gets very cold in the winter, and it gets very, very hot in the summer. And I'm the kind of collector where I like to have everything from A to Z. I've got, you know, Australian tree ferns, Hoyas, epiphytic cacti, cast iron plants, which have like earned their reputation by being healthy here, but I try to keep everything from arids to tropicals in this one room and make it this sort of tiny botanical garden. It definitely presents its challenges, and what I want to talk about is even some of these plants that are in here. This is my desert plant table. This is an illusion. These plants are in here right now for our video, and I sort of keep them in here for the winter, but for these plants to flourish. My landlady, who ironically says I have too many plants and that's her yard with, you know, the nicest garden in the neighborhood, she is so kind, and she lets me have like a little space down in the corner, and every spring I bring down anything that's too big to be in here and could really use full light. And there's no denying that once those plants are outside, this is where they want to be.
This is a great point, because now that I'm primarily upstate, I'm bringing a lot of my houseplants outside, my citrus outside. As soon as I bring them in the winter, they look like crap. They lose most of their leaves. As soon as I'm like, I hope winter ends so soon, because I need to get them outside again, and they just flourish.
Yes. My plant geek journey, when I first got this room, I thought, this is so sunny, it's like being outside. Then all of a sudden I learned about light meters and PAR and location and east, you know, versus west versus south. And you realize that even a room like this, if you like just look around, it's entirely surrounded by windows. But
so is this south, east, and west?
The sun rises. It's very beautiful to be in here
Okay.
in the morning in the summer. The sun rises just, over those trees over there, comes across, and then this is south, and then in the afternoon you have this beautiful golden hour. And over time you start to learn that the difference between having a cactus here, which I used to have a cactus here, and a cactus here is literally night and day. And I used to bring them from the nursery, put them here, and it would be like a thick cactus, and all of a sudden something like a pinky finger would grow. And I said, well, I don't understand how this is happening. Look at how bright my room is. But the indirect light that you get here versus the light that you get on the windowsill or outside, it's everything to these plants, right? They're light eaters.
Yeah.
To sort of illustrate this, I actually didn't want to bring this plant in today. And then you can see it's wet because it was hanging off that laundry line ladder this morning. I ran out to grab it. I put this guy out, and you can see the difference. And I mean, this plant sits by the window hanging here. You think it's a lot of light. This is the growth that it's had indoors. And then this is a few months of just like sitting on that ladder outside. And you can see the internodal distance. You can see the leaf size.
So basically, you could see bigger leaf size, and basically it's much more, there's a lot more leaves, and then this is a little bit more, like if those were nodes, I guess, they would be elongated.
And maybe what's good is that if I just hadn't done that, I wouldn't know any better. And maybe sometimes it's best not to know any better.
You know what, though? I have to say, though, when we go out to see plants in the wild, they're insect-ridden, they're chewed, everybody is in for the perfect leaf, the perfect internode spacing, the perfect stem. But in reality, even outdoors, it's a lot messier than that.
Yes, I've gone on trips, because once you start to like houseplants and notice them in Home Depot, then an amazing thing happens. You start to notice them in nature too, and we travel a lot. They are more beautiful in nature. It's nice to see them in nature. But then go to Saguaro National Park, and you'll see there's no such thing as a cactus that's not beat up, that had a drought longer than the drought that you give it when you go on vacation, that maybe got too hot, that had some birds pecking on it, whatever. So you got to love them, appreciate them for what they are. I guess only in Thailand somehow they've perfected it, where they look like they're grown in nature yet without a single blemish on them.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny. Although I have seen in Thailand, what is it, the Ariocarpus that have the little fuzzy...
Yes.
In Thailand, it grows completely differently because it looks like it's just a mop that's been soaked and wet because the humidity there, the Ariocarpus, is not fluffy and fuzzy like our Ariocarpus. So I feel like that's the one thing in Thailand that the climate doesn't allow.
What is it? The hair gets frizzy because it's too humid.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
We need some product in there. So let me show you some of the plants that I have in here, and I'll try to highlight some stuff that I think is interesting.
Is this like a tree aloe, or what is this?
Yes, so this is a tree aloe that I got on a trip to Tucson, Arizona, right before COVID. And I bought it, and I think it was this big. It came in like a 2-inch pot.
Oh, wow.
And this is something that definitely needs to go outside. It's pretty cold hardy. I can't imagine having the room to only grow it indoors. But the good thing about these cacti is when you bring them in for the winter, they can go basically dormant, and you don't have to worry about them too much. So they can have as long as you're not watering them too much, then they're not going to get that kind of stunted growth. Mm-hmm. So this is a tree aloe. And this is just the beginning. I mean, this is a plant that looks like it's big for New York, but when you go and it's plants for the Southwest, I think you were there.
Yes,
they have
great nursery.
Amazing nursery. They have theirs that they've had since they had the nursery, and it's just in the ground, and they had to cut out a hole in the top because it just kept going, and it turns into really a tree.
And typically, and I see you may have chopped them off, typically the leaves kind of fall down here and they get all like a skirt.
Yes.
And in the wild, that is for protection, so nobody eats the stem and
this
stuff.
one is different. So this is aloe dichotoma, which has a new name.
Yeah, it's
Aloedendron.
Aloedendron or
whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's always hard to keep up.
Yeah.
So this one is actually, in some of the other ones, the leaves sort of do form that protective layer. This one is famous for the leaves dry off.
Oh, interesting.
And they were just really crispy, and I wanted to give it a haircut for the video today.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
And if you feel it, it's famous for this very, very smooth, silvery stem, which is really nice.
And it almost like it looks like it's like a caudiciform, right?
That could be just from, I might have repotted it a little too high in the pot. I'm not 100% sure, but it's happy, so I don't want to mess with it.
Yeah, I hear you.
I think maybe next year it's going to have to go into a bigger pot, and it's starting to be like pots that are a little large for a New York collection.
Now, did you get a Welwitschia there as well?
I got a Welwitschia there as well.
And growing in New York, is this an outdoor or indoor?
This was outdoors as well. So everything on this table is much happier outside, and there's my landlady. Nancy?
Yes, dear.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
We're just looking at my plants in here.
Beautiful. How they doing?
They're pretty good because you take care of a lot of them in the backyard in the summer.
Thank you. I have to do a good job for you.
Nancy, we love plant ladies.
Thank you,
so
Nancy.
much for creating such a beautiful garden space.
Have fun with Tomasz.
Oh, we will.
I enjoy the plant.
I will. Thank you.
She's the best. When I put them outside, she waters these plants as if they're like her flowers. They get watered every day. But I think it's hot, it's sunny, and they can take it. And that was one of the mistakes I made early on when I got into cacti. Is I thought like you had to just like water these things with a dropper. And I realized they're very opportunistic. And when it's hot and when it's sunny, they want to grow and they're thirsty. And when my friends try to take care of my plants, I say, sort of the advice I give them, I say, well, how do you feel when it's hot and sunny outside? You're thirsty, so is the plant.
And if you have a really well-draining mixture,
Yes.
and you have them in terracotta pots and you have a drainage hole, it's really hard to overwater them.
No, nothing.
You know?
None of these plants. She waters them every day.
Yeah.
It storms. These plants do not rot from being too wet. But I did have some plants recently that I acquired from someone, and they were greenhouse grown, and I think they were watering maybe once a month, and I just had them outside on these sills, and a couple of them like rotted over this weekend, and I think it's because those roots weren't accustomed to it. So let me show you these sills. So this is pretty neat. So this is what I learned probably in my third year of having this collection. Even the difference between having the plants just on the inside of the wall and outside. I mean, I nerded out. I did a time lapse, measured how many hours of light each part of the room got at some point, and realized that having them outside meant more direct light and probably like 3 more hours of light, which is a lot.
I mean, your windows aren't dirty, but even having a little bit of obscurity in the windows.
Just like, just the thickness of the wall and being on the inside, it's just like a little more shade.
Yeah.
So my dad had the idea, because I didn't want to kill Nancy. I didn't want like rare plants falling on her head. So we got these like curtain rods and secured them in here so that nothing could fall off. And what started as just having this in 2 of the sills, all of a sudden was like all around. So I got a couple of things here. I know you like Crassula.
I do.
So here is I think it's a moon glow.
Yeah, moon glow. It's a nice cultivar.
It's got that like funky little the funky little flower coming out.
Yep.
And I think even on this you can see this was like the indoor growth, and it's just like a little, the bugs get to it, things get to it when things are outside with the wind and other bugs out there to help you with the bad ones. It's a different story. Here's a plant that's giving me nightmares. This is an Australian tree fern that my friend got for me. It is so thirsty. I went away, it looked like this, and then we went away to my parents' place in Canada for 4 days for Christmas, and I came back, and it looked like this when I left, and when I came back, there was just a stalk.
Oh, no.
And it dried out so fast, which, I don't understand how it survives in the wild, because I know it doesn't always rain every day there. But it was down to just this. I thought, you know what? One thing you learn is you don't give up on the plants too quickly.
Right.
Because you don't know if there's some life in there. So it was literally just some like dried out sticks, and it came back to this. But now that it's so green and full again, it's very thirsty. So want some water every couple days.
I wonder if, outdoors, their root system is such that it starts to pull up from the deeper layers even when it's not raining. And if, in this case, it could be something that you do plant in a larger pot.
I think so, yeah.
Only to retain some more of that water in the pot longer.
I think it's gonna need a larger pot, or it's gonna need some kind of tray underneath, like one of the tricks I learned to where it can suck up some of the water from the bottom, something. But I'm very worried about this if we go away on a trip this winter.
Right.
And speaking of going away on trips, I would like to acknowledge the saints of the Florida room. the friends that make the huge sacrifice, and I've honored them here with this photo. I've got 3 friends that have come in here with video updates while we're gone, sometimes in the winter for like a month or 2, and they come in, and it means sometimes coming in twice a week, and I always say it should be 20 minutes, no more. At this point, we all know it's an hour. There's beer in the fridge for them, snacks for them, and I hope that they enjoy the break. So this is like my friend Carlos, my friend Jeff, and my friend Jamal, who have at some point, all of them, when I call them and like, hey, what's up? And like, hey, what's up, buddy? I'm like, I'm going on vacation. And then it's quiet because they know what it means. And it means like it, but they're good friends. And I like try to repay them and always bring them some nice souvenirs or whatever. But without good plant friends in the city, no collection like this could exist.
Right. Now, are these folks also plant folks, or did you have to train them?
Plant folks, super plant folk, and then this is my friend that knows nothing about plants, and when he comes by, there are stickers and things are color-coded, and several of the plants will say, more valuable than your car, please don't forget this one, which is a bit of an exaggeration, but not always.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's something that's kind of interesting. This is a desert orchid. It's what is it? Oisicloides, I think?
Oisicloides, yeah.
Oisicloides. This sent up a giant stalk. I think we're catching it on the tail end.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we at least got to see it. It's not fragrant, but it's really neat to sort of have had. I only have a couple orchids.
When I was shocked, I went to, I can't remember what botanic garden I was at, maybe in Atlanta, and I had never seen the flower spike before off of one of these. It was growing in their, succulent room, and it was like as tall as I was, and I was like, I can't believe that's crazy, growing straight up. I was like, wow, I hadn't seen that before. Beautiful.
Well, I saw the spike starting, and I resisted Googling it on the internet, because one of the things that I realize is nowadays versus maybe when my dad did this and why he was so excited to get some of his stuff to flower. Now we see, like, if you, God forbid, you click one like on a plant Instagram, and then your whole algorithm is everything, and you just already know what it's going to look like. You know what the flowers are like. You know what it's going to look like mature, when it's fenestrated, whatever. So it's kind of fun to like go back to old school and imagine only having like a library book and not knowing what the flowers are going to look like.
Right.
So I resisted because I was like, what is this going to be? And it started off very small, and I kept thinking like, is this too big? This doesn't seem right. And it was, like quite upright in the beginning, and then all these flowers came out. But it's really neat, and these are the treats when you have these collections. At some point in the beginning, you're just like a kind of like a hoarder, and you're like, I want to, like, oh my God, this looks cool. Look at this leaf. I want to grow this. I want to grow that. And then things change, and you start to sort of get the rewards when that new leaf unfurls. And then when you get something to flower that maybe is a little challenging to flower, it's an amazing feeling, and it sort of keeps you going, because it is a lot of work. These plants are a lot of work. This room does not look this good. This is 2 days of getting the room to look this beautiful. Usually there'd be like, it's hard to keep it clean. It's hard to, like, have things in the right place. It's hard to keep an eye, and pests sneak up on you.
Yeah.
Something looks great, and you're just like, it's your prized plant, and then somehow a week later it's barely alive, and you pull the leaf up, and there's a whole, spider mite colony underneath. And
Real talk with Tom here.
real talk. And then it's in the shower it goes. And then you get yelled at. What are all these wood chips doing in the bathtub? Honey, I don't know.
Begonias, anthuriums.
Yes.
I mean, you just got like a nice little medley of things here.
So the other thing that's really neat, at some point you realize the plants are cool and they're weird, but the plant people are cooler and definitely weirder than the plants. And you start to make friends. You join some societies. They normalize being a freak. There's always someone. Zach, I'm looking at you. I think you're going to be on the tour soon. There's always someone who's a little crazier than you that you can be like, honey, at least we don't have a 10-foot-tall yucca in the living room. But you meet these people, and so this is a plant that I love. This is a begonia cultivar named after a friend of mine in Homestead, Florida. And he mailed this to me on my birthday last year, and it was maybe like 1 or 2 leaves.
And what's the cultivar name?
Philip Ilou.
Oh, okay, Philip Ilou.
So he had a friend of his that was a begonia guy named a plant after him, which is like just the ultimate cool thing.
Yeah.
And it really appreciated being in a bigger pot. I had it in a 2-inch pot, and it was doing okay, and then you realize, you know, they want room for the roots to grow, and it really sort of exploded this year. That's very beautiful. Then you have a good example of the way the internet plays tricks on you, and I got my Anthurium luxurians, which was just like on my forever wish list. I would see it in botanical gardens, and I don't know if you remember how crazy things got during COVID with the price of plants.
Hey, you know what? I didn't buy anything during COVID.
So yeah, so this is one of those ones where maybe I said, like, you know, please water this because it's more expensive than your car. At some point, you remember these were like $600-800. But with this hobby, especially with tropicals, if you just exhibit some patience and wait long enough, you'll find it at an affordable price. And
or it'll go into tissue culture, which a lot of them have.
And I'm glad when they do.
Because
you know, that's important to save plants and habitat. And so I finally got it after all those years of wanting it and like lusting after it and refreshing. And then I like forgot about it like a little bit later. You know, so there is that aspect of the hobby. Like, hey, it's very easy when you go and you see these people displaying this plant. It's always easy to sort of fall for this, like the hot plant of the month. But it's a lot better for your wallet and your sanity to sort of just be like, I'm going to like what I like.
Exhibit restraint.
Exhibit restraint, and don't like something because it's fashionable, just like it because it's a neat plant. And there are some collectors I've met, the ones that I respect the most almost. My dad is a great example. It doesn't have to be rare. It doesn't have to be trendy. He just says, like, this plant's so cute, and it's the most common plant, and I'm jealous. And I said, you know what? You got it figured out.
Yeah.
You're not, like, swayed by public opinion or trends. You just like the plant because it's the plant. Not because it's hard to get. Okay, here's another one that I really like. This is a struggle that I've had as well in this room, because you go to Florida, and you see these, like, shingling plants and climbing plants, and I'll visit Philip's greenhouse, and he'll just like, a plant will fall over and then just shingle along like the side of a plastic pot or do whatever it wants. Like, God forbid you put a coffee cup down and forget about it. And a week later, it's like covered in some kind of like Dischidia or Hoya. This, I have been struggling. I do everything. I spritz it, I like tie it, and instead of going up, it's just like going around this pot. And all I want, because I think it would be so cool if this like just climbed up this like
and this
cholla
is an
skeleton.
ant plant.
This is like the kids from the cactus store. We all got into ant plants for a little while. So this is Dischidia major, or Rafflesia, I think is the other name for it. These are really neat. So you can see it has the two different kinds of leaves. It has the ones that
unbelievable.
In here is like a little maze for the ants.
And does it always exhibit these two types of leaves simultaneously?
When it's happy, you get both kinds of leaves.
Okay.
And when it seems to be too dry, it just sends out long shoots of the flatter leaf. But I'm hoping one day, and maybe I'll stick it. I have to put it in a cloche. You got to like do something to coax it. I've got a few more in here that I tried to do, because he had this is another Dischidia.
I like Dischidias. Again, it's
they're
kind
really
of one
neat.
of those things that are often overlooked.
And this is a custom pot that my friend created for me, and we had the idea that if we filled this with like bark and soil, that the roots would go inside and then it would just sort of like go flat along this.
Yeah,
but
almost like a chia pet.
almost
but
like
for Dischidia.
Yeah, exactly. It didn't quite pan out. I can assure you that the ones that I saw in Homestead would have like, you wouldn't even see what's underneath. It would have just, it would be, in a greenhouse, it would be much tighter. The difference between the nodes would be almost zero, and it would just be this like very beautiful. But this is it. These are the conditions we have.
Yeah, and the Bob Ross chia pet, it just wouldn't. He'd look like Bob Ross would have just a few little sprigs of hair, essentially.
Yeah. But these are the experiments we do. These are like we struggle in these conditions and we try to make the plants happy. Iteration number 2, he gave it some more texture, thinking that would help for the roots to be able to attach to it. So here we are, like trying to make custom pots to get these plants to do something. Here's another one. This thing refused to climb up this like cholla skeleton as well, no
Yeah.
matter what I did. And finally this year, it happened, and it's
attached.
attached.
Yeah.
But before that, with no prompting or help from me, it attached itself to the radiator instead. So it refused to go up here where I wanted it to go up, and kind of went up this. But then once winter hit, that turned into like a crisp.
Yeah, exactly.
So that didn't really work out either. And then this is the plant that I kept. This is going to go on the street yesterday, and maybe it will today. But this is the peperomia, and I know you like peperomia, so it's stuck around. And it is in its original IKEA pot, one of my first plants from like 5 years ago.
It's even got roots coming out.
Oh yeah, it's got roots going everywhere, but there's just, you know what? There's just no room for everything to get a bigger pot, unfortunately, at some point, and it's sort of nice to let these plants go sometimes.
I'm looking at this, and this is one plant that I have lost, and I was so sad when I lost it, because it was like you said, I had a mealybug that came in while I was gone and just decimated it. It's a type of Ceropegia,
yes,
right?
I think maybe Bosserai or Mondii.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell until it flowers.
Yeah.
This actually was a beautiful plant right over here yesterday, and then because I knew you were coming, I thought it could use like a nice new pot. And as I was repotting it, it fell right off, and I said, well, now I have two. The good thing about succulents is when you break them, you can just tell yourself, well, now I have two.
That's true.
I have one I can give to a friend. So a little bit of rooting hormone. Mm-hmm. I was hoping to have it ready today, but I didn't want to put it in too early and maybe rot it.
Yeah.
But I was very proud of this one because I got this as a cutting from one of the kids at the cactus store. And it was also, within a month, nearly died off, and it was just root mealies abound. And I just cut off like a little tip, and it grew all the way in one season into something this size. So that was great.
Now, what is this rooting hormone, though? It looks like it's like a paper mache.
No, you know what? It was like a little moist. It's just a little too much. I got to shake it off.
Oh, okay, got it. He didn't shake.
I didn't shake. These are great, and when you go to Homestead and you see them in a nursery, you realize that the leaves are actually like all going to be this big if they're just happy enough, and we just don't get to see that very often.
Not in New York. No.
Not in New York. So this is from my friend in Homestead, and he does a lot of one-off hybrids. And when I visit, or sometimes he sends some, and they're, you know, you can't buy them.
Yeah, so these are ones that he probably hasn't selected as a cultivar to get a name, maybe. And he says, you know what, but they're nice enough. And or do they have names?
Some of them have names. Well, this one is not that. This is Crystal Mag plus Regale, and he has a lot of them that are the original. Like Tim Black, I think, was the guy in Homestead or in Miami. So he's going to be at the Aroid show, I think for the first time in years, he's going to be selling some of his unusual hybrids, but I love them so much, and they are such a struggle for me.
Yeah, and is this a Forgetii?
Yes, that's a Forgetii.
Okay.
But you can see, no matter what I do,
thrips or spider mite damage or something like that.
and
right?
it's 100%.
Yeah.
And you spray, and then you wonder if you should be spraying in this little room as much as you're spraying, and then someone tells you that this spray works better than that spray, and for a while they look great, and then you let your guard down, and then like this happens again. So it's a real struggle, I think, over there. Maybe the humidity over there is different. Things are always wet, and that helps. And I've seen people, it's not my forte, and I've seen people in New York that have much better collections.
Mm-hmm.
But I've got to say, I had a very blessed first 2 years of having plants in this room with no pests, and I just didn't understand what the big deal was with pests.
I felt the same way when I first got into plants. It was like maybe 5 or 6 years that I was like scot-free without any, and then I got a couple more plants, and then all of a sudden, boom.
But once they get in, they never leave. You never fully get rid of them. And it was I think during COVID with thrips, and I saw them, and I got like my little magnifying glass, and I looked up close and went on the internet, and it was like, okay, that's a thrip, and I blasted them with what is it, spinosad?
Oh, I've never used it. Yeah.
Yeah, but that did the trick. But I mean, it was showering daily. It's a lot of work. It really tests your resolve. When you get a bad infestation, you just kind of want to quit, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to collect stamps instead.
See, and citrus, it's one of those things that I had citrus, didn't really work in New York. Now I have it, and I'm like, they always seem to get a little bit of spider mites in the winter months. I don't know how, but they have spider mites.
Yeah.
And as soon as spring comes around, I'm like, you're outdoors.
Yeah.
And then nature deals with it, at least for me.
Yeah.
And then I bring them back in, and it's like this up and down cycle, and you just hope that the winter's not long enough that it totally destroys them.
So speaking of, in a corner over there are 3 like Alocasia ferromask. You can't even see them because they're hidden behind some other plants.
Alocasia for me are the biggest thrips and spider mite magnets.
That plant, I will spray it daily. I'll do whatever I can, and then I'll just like forget about it for 3 days, and I come back and it looks like it's a cocoon. Back to the theme of these are the challenges. These plants bring you joy. These plants bring you new friends and new activities, like the Lower East Side Cactus Show. We're going to have the New York 3rd show coming up in a couple weeks. But it's a lot of work. It's a lot of stress, and it's not quite a pet because, it doesn't need to be fed daily, but they really do, as much as you own them, they certainly have their roots in you too, and they own you a little bit. But we love them for it, but it's challenging.
Now, are these little Microsorum thailandicum?
Yes, exactly. So those
That's a lot.
These are really, really neat. Certain angles, when you catch them, they really have that blue.
Yeah.
I think they're beautiful. And it's supposed to be very slow growing, but I don't know what it is, but they've doubled in size in the couple months that I've had them, which is great.
Very good. I mean, maybe, these are like more understory plants. They have the iridoplasts. Maybe you just give them just enough light where they're like, whoa, I'll grow. Here's
another one, and I entered this in the Connecticut Cactus Show this year.
Syningia, right?
Leucotricha. Kind of fuzzy right now. When the leaves are older, it's like a little hairy.
Yeah,
but
looks nice and fuzzy.
This plant, when it comes out of dormancy every spring, and the leaves are very, very small, but very, very furry, it's like a little puppy dog. And then you get the red trumpet flowers. It's a beautiful plant, and with some of these plants, you realize they come in and out of dormancy, and they've got like a look that they're going to have over different parts of the year, and you sort of appreciate and you look forward to them coming out of dormancy.
Yeah. Now, are they in dormancy typically in the winter here, or?
For me, it seems to be dormant in the winter. I'm not 100% sure. I am not one of those guys where I'm like, this is a winter grower in South Africa. My conclusion after years of doing this is that we're not in South Africa.
Right.
And whatever winter means there, outside doesn't necessarily mean the same thing as like indoor winter or in New York or summer in New York. So when I see things are growing, I water them. When it looks like they're dying off, I stop. And that's sort of been like my one general rule with some success, but looking back at old photos of this room over the year, I like remember how many plants I used to have and that didn't make it. So,
Now is this a myrtillo cactus in the back that's crested? It's kind of got a funky crest.
yeah, well, look, it was a beautiful crest, and then it got.
Can you
Can
bring
I'll
bring
bring
that
it out.
out?
I was trying to hide it from you. It was
Why?
supposed to be here.
It's kind of a
But
kind
the
of a
crest
cool
was
crest.
neat. But
Oh,
the
I see.
Yeah,
I
it
see
burned.
that.
I think it got a bad sunburn. I used to have this
Yeah.
at my office, and it had like
I
a
didn't
black
see that in the back. You could have just
There we go.
faced it that way. There you go.
But my good side.
You went right for the bad side. But I thought this is kind of neat.
Yeah,
it's
so
like
it's
like a spinal column.
It does look cool. You're right, but it's sort of reverted, and I don't know what the odds of it like cresting again are. It was a really beautiful plant.
Yeah.
And sad, but this is one that like I just didn't want to give up on. And
You
I'm
know
like,
what I
maybe one day
like? You
it'll come
mentioned the
back.
Lower East Side Cactus Society, and they have like these little prizes and gifts for
Yes.
like the best cactus revival, like
Yes.
the one the one that's been grafted and died and came back again. It's kind of fun. It's got a little, it's got cheekiness.
We have to have like different categories because of our conditions and the fact that if you grow something from seed, it's a real accomplishment in New York. So we have to have some more original categories. What is it? Original spirit, I think.
Original spirit,
Original
yeah.
spirit, and it can be something that basically maybe got so much like mite damage that it got a new look and a new shape. This is one I'm going to enter. This is a Crassula ovata gimli, so it's a miniature jade.
Wow.
And I got this from a friend of mine as a tiny, tiny cutting. And I wasn't even interested in it, but I was like, if she gave it to me. This is like the nice thing about these plants is when you get cuttings from friends. In the beginning, you're buying everything, and then you start to trade plants with your friends. And then the plant is the plant, but it's also a reminder of that person. And you sort of, send them updates of it along the way. And,
Right.
but it's a really, really neat,
It's so cool.
like monstrose form,
Right.
tiny jade. And it appreciated like a slightly bigger pot, but I can't do any bigger than this because then it won't be in the miniature category. Mm-hmm. Another one that I'm quite proud of is, I love Pachypodium.
You have a nice
and
one
this
back
is
there too.
an Aburnum, and I bought this from Paradise Found in person.
Wow. Oh yeah. Paradise Found. I've always
2019.
liked to visit there, but look at the planter too. It's something to be said about the planter.
Yeah, this one
Wow.
was nice enough that it, like I want to enter it in a show next year, so I wanted to put it in a cool pot.
Look at those claws, huh?
Yeah. This, when I got this, it was the size of like a very small plum. And I've grown it hard. These guys can take, Pachypodium. Some of these cacti like do not like to be even in full sun in New York. They'll start to turn purple, stunt their growth, but these Pachypodium can take as much sun and heat as you can give them. So this is a really neat one.
It almost looks like a desert rose.
Yeah.
If you took off all these spikes and just
Yeah.
had that, the leaves remind me of a desert rose.
And this one, like, it got some different growth points, so it's kind of neat. You can see, like, the shape developing. But these plants, these are funny, these plants. Sometimes the only way to know if it's growing is to look at the photo from last year.
Right.
And for a while, I thought it hadn't grown. I'm like, well, this is the same size. It's like trying to look at your fingernails or hair grow. You got to look at pictures. And it's come like a really long way. So this is one that I'm actually very proud of to have grown this well. And then when I repotted it this year, I was very nervous. I was like, well, I hope I get the mix right.
Yeah.
I hope this is the right time of the year, because this is one that if I were to lose, I'd be heartbroken. Because I bought it for I think like $15, and
Yeah.
now it's like on its way to being like a nice specimen.
Yeah,
plant.
it's a nice specimen plant that you could probably charge $150 for.
And this is
10x your return.
Yeah. And
Don't put it on the edge like that. That's freaking me out.
All these plants live on the edge.
You're right. You're right. Now that's a regular lameri. The Pachypodium is down that way.
Yes. And you know what? And it's and that's like a common plant.
It's
but
common,
again, like
yeah.
talking about it with my dad, and he loves lameri, and I'm telling him like I only want the one that you've never heard of.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said about when common plants reach an uncommon New York size, then they become uncommon plants too. So yes, you can buy like a basic Pachypodium lameri. It's a fast-growing plant. And then when you grow it and all of a sudden it starts to get up to the size of your waist, it's really cool. And that's also like an accomplishment. And I know some of the like kids in the club love to buy like a specimen plant or something super rare. But to me, the greatest pleasure is buying something tiny, growing it, and then saying like, I did that. I didn't just get that from some old guy that did this for 30 years. And then God, the pressure when you do that is like someone grew this for 30 years and then you kill it in 3 days. So it's really neat. Here's actually a really neat one that I got from Miles to Go, and this is actually flowering right now. And I think this is like the Stapeliad family. If you want to have a whiff of that, it's got like a nice faint dead mouse.
Okay, let's do dead mouse smell. Okay.
They're not, you know, it's at certain times of the day.
Maybe my nose isn't working.
It's very, very faint right now.
Because I know what dead mouse smells like.
Yeah.
That is a real. I'm gonna have to get a close up on that because those are so cool. They're like little
they're
pinwheels.
really. It's when you get up close, they're like a little like they got purple hairs around the end,
furry
and
little pinwheels.
and there's some like subtle color variation that we're not going to see with our eyes, but in there.
Quite a bit about to flower here, as well. You know, even this obesum is sticking out a little flower spike.
I think that's the fruit. I had the flowers.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. Look, it's not dead. This just happened a few days ago.
And is that a Dioscorea? Is it elephantippus?
Yes, elephantippus.
Yes, yeah.
This I got from the cactus store in LA. We had a layover there coming back from Borneo. And I said, I've heard about this cactus store. I have to go look at it. And I bought it. It was, again, the size of maybe like a cherry. It's grown very well. The first time it went dormant, I went on the internet freaking out, like asking if the plant's dead. And they said, no, you just got to put it away now in a dark part of the room and leave it alone, which is really hard to do.
Yeah, it is.
Because you sometimes...
And easy to forget,
yes,
you know,
and
take them out.
It's very easy to love dormant plants to death, right? So every year it gets bigger. It's a really nice size. It got some really like beautiful fissures. When I got it, it was like quite smooth. So this has been another one that I'm very proud of, and it's really nice to see it come back. This is about the same time every year, like very late summer, and then it shoots out that really long vine, which is kind of fun to like get it through the room or like wrap it around. But it will want to. It's amazing. It's like with the plant intelligence, it will want to just like wrap itself up here. But sometimes I want to display it differently and have it going across.
This is, by the way, an excellent display case. I mean, I just kind of looked at the whole thing.
It's a butcher block.
Oh my!
It's an antique butcher block that someone down the street had for sale. And I ended up, and I think you used to like hang, I don't know, like pots or pins, and it had like little rings and various things, but it ended up being like a really beautiful plant display.
Wow, it's so cool. It's very medieval.
It's like a California-based American designer, I think, from the 60s.
Wow.
And so it found a new life as like a pretty neat plant display here in the corner.
Yeah, it's like medieval meets industrial.
Yeah. It's very cool. And it, like I said, it's worked out perfectly. The plants wrap around it. The Hoyas, the Dioscorea wraps around it.
Is this a Hoya caudata or no?
That is Hoya clemsonorium.
Oh, I don't know. Okay, clemsonorium. I've heard of that one, but
it's really neat. It makes, you know, caudata is kind of like dead looking and ancient looking. I think it makes caudata look like it's like green and lush. It's really sort of prehistoric.
Yeah, it looks reptilian.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like it's like a dinosaur.
Yeah.
And I've got it growing in sort of like a bark mix, and then as an experiment, I cut it and I had it growing in self-watering pond.
Oh,
which
interesting. And it's kind of silvering up here.
Just doesn't really, that pond is like somehow I just can't figure it out. Here is another one that we just...
that is cute.
This was like so stinky just a few days ago. I'm sorry you missed it.
That's okay. I'll pass.
It's a Pseudolithos. What is it? Mergenitis? I think
it's the ones that are like a cube, right?
This one is not a cube. That's cubiformis is the cube.
Okay, cubiformis. Okay, this is more roundish, I guess?
Yeah, this is round, warty.
It's cute.
It's really neat.
It looks like the head of a turtle meets one of those star-nosed moles.
Yeah, or it's like just like the world's biggest wart.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, with the fur hair on it.
But and this I was really proud of it. I got this to flower, and it was very stinky. And I love like bringing my wife in and being like, smell this. It smells so bad.
See, I have no problem usually sticking my face because I want to
Yeah.
experience it. I want to experience that smell
So
for myself.
that's another thing. So in this day of Instagram, of seeing every plant and habitat, whatever, the one thing you can't do, the tech's not there to scratch and sniff on your phone. So when you get a flower, like that's why one of the reasons I like Hoyas. They're kind of boring sometimes the way they look, but the flowers are awesome and they're so fragrant. And
Yeah.
sometimes at night I'll get up to go to the bathroom at 2 a.m. and I walk in here, and for whatever reason at night they're really, really fragrant, and you get a chocolatey smell, or there's so many that smell like various old lady perfumes, variations of like some lady at church.
Right.
But it's really neat, and I do love smelling all the flowers.
Can you bring this one out? Because I bought this plant and they sent me one that was it was like cut on and it had weird growth. This is the one that I really wish I had gotten because this one's like totally straight up.
But like this one also sort of got stunted. It was growing very, very well, and then I think this year it hasn't grown at all. It's really neat, kind of like the Michelin Man.
Yes. Because I got mine from Paradise Found Nursery, and then it was like cut, and then it was just a weird growth structure. And I was like, oh, that's not the one I really wanted.
Sometimes like
But I got
buying
it
plants online, you get what you get.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful plant. It's very hard to grow. It's one that always gets some sort of like imperfections. This is one that I've never seen one in any condition that was like perfect and green. I do wish it would grow. Why is it not growing? I don't know.
You might just have to look at the photos and realize that.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe a little bit.
I feel like these are new growths. Like they're just tiny.
My worry is that this is probably what's going to happen, that if we empty this right now, we're going to find root mealies in here.
Oh, don't say that.
Because they're like, this is the one that root mealies are the one thing where I like almost wanted to get rid of my entire cactus collection.
This is also, if people remember, when I went to the Wave Hill and we did the cactus and succulent tour there, they said root mealies are just one of those things that you just normally don't see.
No.
Unless you pull out the plant, and it's one of the more common pests that they have had.
And that's Harnack.
Harnack, yeah.
Over there is like my buddy. Every time I go, I see him, and we like, some of the plants in there. It was like really neat, actually. One of the things you can do is I brought him small cuttings, and then I see them in his greenhouse like 3 years later, like a big, beautiful plant.
Amazing.
But we talk about it, and root mealies are, once you get one, it's just like, it's a fact of life.
Yeah, yep.
And I've tried systemic granules, and it works for a while, but they come back. Last year I went nuts. I got a sous vide because I'd heard about a method of like cooking the root ball that they do in Hawaii, and I literally like sous vide'd all my plant collection.
Did it work?
It worked for a while, but it's like all it takes, because what I had to do is I had to organize all the pots into the same height.
Yeah.
And I would sous vide them in batches at the height right up to like the level of like the top of the pot.
Wow.
And it was something like 125 Fahrenheit for 20 minutes is enough to kill the root mealies without having to use anything toxic. But the plants can take that kind of a heat.
Oh, Tom, what we do for our plants.
I know. It's like
sous vide the root balls.
It's like you think you come home
and
you come home and you think I'm making like some kind of like delicious tender duck breast, but instead it's just my plant collection in there. And then they came back though, because all it took was just a few like where the water wasn't quite high enough.
Yeah.
And if one of those little things survives or the eggs survive, then they all come back. So it's just sort of like a battle.
Well,
every year.
This is real talk with Tom. Real plant talk with Tom.
It's not all fun and games. It's not all smelling the dead mouse flower. It's a lot of work, and then you question. You're like, do I really want to keep doing this? Everything these plants are telling me is that we do not want to be here anymore. We didn't ask to come to New York.
Well, I think you really give us an eye opener. And yes, folks, he had to clean for 2 days to make this look nice for us. But thank you, Tom.
Thank you so much for coming.
That's really good tour. Stay tuned on Plant One on Me for more botanical tours, talks, and how-tos. And if you're looking to further your knowledge on the plant kingdom, then have a look at our various online courses from Troubleshoot Your Houseplants to the Houseplant Masterclass. Additionally, we have a second channel we started last year called Flock Finger Lakes, where we cover more on outdoor gardening, habitat restoration, agroforestry, and even more. So check that out if that interests you. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next episode.